What people are looking for is love. They're not looking for the fetish. They're looking for a release. Because when there's a release and energy circulates, there's a love. But the fetish is not a release. It's an induced release. So the love is never there, so it tenses up more. So what do? Well, let us say that I engage in this way. I'm not entertaining the fetish. I don't have a problem with the fetish, and I can play into the fetish, but I'm concerned with the person and their issue, and I have to go and I navigate through the fetish to touch them. Because the fetish takes all the space. If a person is hungry, you cannot talk to them about anything else. So once you give them food, you can speak about other things. The person is obsessed with their fetish. It is the very center of their world, depending on which fetish it is. So how am I supposed to get through to them if the fetish takes all the space? It's impossible. So in order to get through to them, I have to go through the fetish. But I'm not interested in the fetish. I'm interested in them. I'm interested in what's the cause of their trauma, what's the cause of their pain. I care for them. But going through the fetish, they live their fetish, but they do not live the fetish in its exaggerated, over-aggrandized, exploitive kind of way, because there's no violence. The whole point of a fetish is violence. I can't let go. I need somebody to violate me, to force me to let go. The fetish comes from the fact that the birth of the fetish comes from the fact that I cannot let go. And I cannot let go because there's not something offering me support or a fulcrum so I can relax in myself. So that's what the job of a medicine man is. It's like, well, I see you, which means I'm offering you support now, not the fetish, you. And therefore there can be a beginning of release, which makes that the fetish and its intensity is minimized. So if the person needs something very violent, you can just go like this, but you're so precise that it gives the nervous system the little adjustment it needs. But what they really needed was somebody to touch them. So it creates a chain reaction of release, and at the end all there is left is like a little attachment, and you could just go like this. Now, I'm simplifying. Sometimes it's more dramatic. But it doesn't matter. It depends. But we can say in general this is how it works. We can say. But it can be much more dramatic depending on the level of intensity and how held the tension is and what's holding the tension. We have tensions in our bodies, like I try to explain. Tensions come from mind states. And mind states are very often, sometimes they're new, and sometimes they're contracted from ancestors. And these mind states, if you follow them, a mind state, it's a deity, it's a power. Not God with a capital G, it's a deity, small gods, entities, powers, whatever you want. Demons. Use whatever word you want to say it's a principality. And these tensions, which is coming from a mind state, it's a mind state that's able to block the circulation of life. It can be linked to, it can go down a lot of generations, and it can have been contracted thousands of years ago. And it wants to be paid. So at the end, in the work you can mitigate it, but nevertheless, if it requires a certain kind of payment, it needs the payment. Which is a little bit what the story of Jesus represents at the end of the day, isn't it? Payment for the sins, sin equal tension, tension equal break of the law. Break of the law means Lucifer or a demon and a contract with a demon. Now, this is not what they're telling you, but this is what it means. So this is why God sent His begotten Son, His only one. He only has one. Not 2, not 10, not 20, 1. And He's a Jew. Of course. And then He killed His Son. Let me get out of my joking mood. So the boy had to be sacrificed to shed blood to pay the contract. And look at what the story of God is. It's like, well, if I don't send my son, it would be not payable. So he killed one person instead of the entirety of the entire creation. In fact, there's not even a possibility that the contract is paid, because there's nothing worth enough. You cannot pay it. It's too expensive. So he ended up killing one person. And that's the story, right? So God's love for us. This is a Christian story, okay? But I'm good at it because you could say I'm a Christian, right? I'm every religion, by the way, but now I'm the Christian hat. So he sent his son, who died for us, without which we can't pay for our sin. We can't undo the tension. We can't unfuck what was fucked. We can't go back to the flow. We cannot tune ourselves with the word, capital W, of God. You see what I'm trying to say? So this is a principle. It's a principle of healing that is embedded in many traditions, not necessarily spoken in such a way, but it's understandable. And how can God do this? Because He loves you. He's not concerned with your sin. He's not concerned with your fetish. He's not concerned with the blockage. He loves you. But something has to be paid, because the entity that creates the tension wants to be paid. It's going to get love, no doubt. But still it wants to be paid. It needs to receive something. So when a person is quote unquote living, let's say there's a person who has a fetish for a traumatic experience and lives a traumatic experience, there's no release really, because there's not one place of love. There's no place of consciousness. There's no light. None. It's actually just violence. But because the tension is violent, and to force a release is going to be equally, if not a little more violent, which is going to create a reclaiming, which is going to be more violent. There's no consciousness, and the person who's enacting, who's playing the polar game with you, is totally absorbed in his own fetish, which is to abuse you. Right? So two unconscious meeting can create just more tension. But for a moment, there will be some kind of release. But if now that person is conscious and is playing a role consciously, so therefore he is violent, there is no violence. But if I need to growl, I will. But am I really growling, or am I playing the growler? Am I growling at you, or am I growling at that thing while I'm smiling at you at the same time, giving you a wink? Anyways, this is a complex, okay, and this is not for everybody, but it's a nice little intro if you'd like.